Let me tell you an interesting story first. So, long before, when people started cooking and they discovered fire and they got to know that they can use fire for cooking purposes, they felt the need to store the food that they were cooking. So, this led to an invention of things that we call container today, just like this one. Time progressed, people became more and more sophisticated and they started following a very useful pattern. And this pattern involves storing different foods and different types of food in different containers. For example, storing cheese in certain containers, storing breads in certain form of containers, which will be suitable for the food item and for also enhance the storage capacities and utility for the facility. And if you are a merry bachelor and you don't have any pressure from anyone, so I don't think that you will be following certain sophistications like this, and you will be storing whatever you want in whichever position, in whichever containers you want. But wait, the video was about programming, right? So let me connect the dots for you. The containers are used to store food, but in programming, containers are used to store useful values that will be used in your code snippets and are useful. And the sophisticated people that I have mentioned are nothing, just high level languages like Python and Java. So this type of programming languages follow a certain paradigm, and which involves, let's say, so you will first name the variable. Let's name it as num. Then you will initialize it using int num is equal to 3. So you just initialize the variable as an integer type. So if you try to store your name in this variable, you will be prompted by the computer by an error. Languages like Java and C++, they don't allow you to store integer variables in string variables, and they are very particular about storing which variables is initialized with which data types or which types of data. But our Python is very easygoing and a very simple language to understand. It has no restrictions and you can store whatever you want in a variable. You can store an in numeric value, let's say 3, and then you can remove the value and then you can store your name. Let's just understand what a variable is first. And I'll show you if you don't use variables, what will happen. For example, if you have had a misfortune and you are very unfortunate, and by mistake you have asked a girl her real age, then first of all, welcome to the club. And secondly, now you know that they never tell the real age of themselves. So, as I have always said, that programming is no less than magic. So we'll use this magic to find out the real age of a girl. They will tell 10, 15, 20, even 25 years plus or minus of their real age. So we'll make a program that actually tells the real age of a girl. So in the first line itself, you will feel the need of using a variable. And how will you feel it? Well, you need to store the real age. Let's say the real age is 25. No. Now, in the first line itself, you see that you need to store this 25 in somewhere. So, as I said, I won't use variable, and I'll prove what happens when you don't use a variable. So, now, as I said that they usually tell their age 10, 15, 20 or 25 years of age. But during my research, I was unable to find what is the correct figure. So you can assume it yourself, and you can use whatever you have been told. So I'll be using 5, not because it was told, but my mind said. Now, as it is very simple program, you just need to plus or minus this figures, and I'll use plus figures. So you just need to print 25 plus 5, and that's it. This is the program, and it seems simple. And you say that not using variable makes program very much simpler. But let's say that the program you are seeing is not written by you. It was written by someone else. Now, can you understand what is written? What is this 25 and what is 5? You cannot. So the main purpose of using a variable is to enhance the readability of your code and make your code much more readable. Trust me. Down the line, after 2 or 3 years, when you will see your code and you will not understand a single bit, and that is the time that you will wish that you have used correct proper naming variables. So So let's make an program when you need to take the input from the user and you'll be using the input function. So when you need to take the input from the user, you will use the input function. And for instance, you want to display something onto the console. For example, I need to display enter your age here. So you just need to put this inside this double brackets and it will be displayed onto the console just like this. But as I said, if I've inputted the age here, I need to store it somewhere. I am not using variables in this scenario. So it becomes a very hard program as we progress. Then I need to input the value that I'll be using to add to this age. So let's name that value as X. Now, it's a very simple program from here onwards, as you can just add these two values inside the print statement and it becomes a very simple program. Isn't it? Then when you run, click on run. Let's say there is just 25, the X value is 5. What just happened? Is the real age 255? It may be, but no. This is a topic that I wanted to discuss after variables. And let me tell you that the value that you see might seem that it is a numeric value, but it is not a numeric value. So whenever beginners use input, they encounter such problems. So when you use input and whatever the value that you are using, whatever the value that you have taken input from the console. So if it is a numeric value, so for example 25678, it will not be stored as a numeric value and it will not be treated as a numeric value by Python programming, because input function is pre-built and it is thought that the value that whatever the value that will be inputted by the user while using input function will be a string value. So what just happened here was 25 will be concatenated with the value, as I have used plus, 25 will be concatenated by 5 and 25 just like this. We inputted 25 and the value that was inputted as X was 5. So they was concatenated as plus operation in a very name is treated as just place it after that. For example, your name and your surname. So how will you correct this? So you will correct this as typecasting and as the numbers are numeric. So I'll type int here. And your program will be ready to go. So what I did was, for a typecasting, this is called typecasting in technological terminologies. So what I did was, when you are encountering any numeric value, so you just need to type int and whatever you will be typing inside the brackets will be treated as a numeric value, no matter if you are using input function or not, or no matter you are using any kinds of functions and whatever you are using. It will be treated as an integer or numeric value throughout the program. The program is good to go. Now type 25, 5, it will display 30. Now the old problem that I was talking about is using calculative methods like percentage in here. You can see that this line has become very long. Do you want me to add a new parameter to this code and use calculations here? It will become very tough. So this is the need of programming variables, and I think that it is very much clear. So if you want to solve this problem using variables, so you will just initialize a variable called age. So you can use any naming in you can use anything to name your variable, and then just equate it with the value that you want to store. I want to store it with 35, let's say, and then the value with 5. Now when you'll print it, it will be displayed 40. Here I didn't use input function, so there is no need to use int typecasting here. But for instance, if you are using it, so I'll just type it input, enter the age, same here. Now you can typecast this value in different positions in different programs. So I'll typecast it where I'll be adding and operating this here. The value won't be changed. Let's say 30 plus 5, 35. So this was the explanation that I wanted to show that what happens when you don't use variable. Now, I want to discuss about data types. So what are they? So data types are nothing. The value that is stored inside the variable, what type of value it is. So it is represented by data types. What type of value is stored inside the data variable. So it is data type. For example, an integer value like 3, 4, 5 is a numeric value. So in Python, it is represented as int. And for float values, for example, 3.4, 5.7, which includes decimal in it, it is referred to as float data type. And my name, which are words, will be represented by string data type. And characters like A, B, C, D are character data types. So they are nothing, just the value that will be stored in your variables and the value that are used in your programs. But it is very difficult to know the data type in Python unless and until you get the error like we got just here in input function. So how will you get the data type of a function if you are asked and if you are needed it? So I'll teach you how to get. So for that, initialize a variable with whatever you want. So we'll say a is equal to 3. Then use the print statement to print it onto the console. And then under the print statements bracket, use type function. So type function is used to get the data type, and inside type function just place the variable that you want to get the data type of. In our case it is a, and when you run your program you will get the data type, as we got data type as class and object as integer. So it is of integer data type. So that's how you get data type in Python. Now the answer to the real question that why is Python different from Java and C++? So in simple terms, Python programming doesn't need the variables to be initialized with certain data types. And if you want an in-depth explanation, here it is. So if you are asked by an interviewer or if you are asked in a very formal way, you can answer it if you understand this. So Java and C++ are nothing just statically typed languages. By statically typed languages, I mean that when the computer tries to decode certain this type of languages, so it will use a compiler, and while using a compiler, it will undergo each and every detail of the code and it will read each and every line with very detail. So it will also use a stack to refer what kind of variables you have stored, and their values will be stored in a stack. So if it is stored in a stack, first of all, a stack is the thing just in English, stack means store on top of something else. So in programming also, stack means the value that you are using currently will be stored on top of a value that is pre-existing. Similarly, if you are using compilers, it will use a real stack to store the value that you have just initialized. Now the stack needs an offset value, and what is this offset value? It's nothing. For example, we have initialized a variable called int num and it's initialized as 3. So it is an integer type value which is also stored in a numeric way. So this offset value will be the size of the integer data type, and it is 4 in case of Java. So the offset value will be 4, and after 4 bytes of memory in the memory locations, you can use to store something else. So offset value is nothing just the location which can be used further to store something else next. And it seems a bit complicated, and it is very complicated in terms of statically typed languages, and we don't need to know if you are using Python. So Python is nothing like just languages. It is dynamically typed languages. By dynamically typed languages, I mean that in Python there is no need to initialize the variables. And why is it? Because it is decoded by the computer using an interpreter, and using an interpreter is just means that the computer just overlooks everything, and it just checks for syntactical and spelling errors, nothing else. It won't be bothered by what type of variables you are using and what are their data types. It doesn't have actually a true stack. There is no stack used in an interpreter. So to be simple and to sum up that, Python programming doesn't need the use of initializing the variables and initializing the variables like integer, string. It doesn't need that. It's very simple. Also, the creator of Python, Guido van der Rossum, actually intended Python to be the most simplest language to be learned and it to be very understandable and readable. So his main and the most crucial decision was not to include data types while initializing a variable, which actually led to the programming being very simple. So that's the real reason that Python does not include variable initializing with data types, and it is very simple language.